Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Executive Encore. We are a little late for the live broadcast today simply because technology rules our lives most of the time, and we've had a little bit of a technology glitch. So, in today's video podcast, this is where we blend motivation, personal stories, and practical tips to help you remaster your life and work through any transition from 40 to 60 and beyond. If you are a woman business owner, an executive, or a professional, you're in the right place. Today's episode, I am thrilled to introduce you to Lisa Marie Blumenfeld, the brilliant founder of not one company, but two companies, Retain and 11. And is it 11? Is that the right pronunciation?
Yes. Yep. 11.
Good. Lisa Marie's revolutionary work in HR is redefining workplace communication for startups and Fortune 500 companies alike. Today, Lisa Marie will share what she has learned during her incredible entrepreneurial story and share how we can harness the power of a pause to reset and restore as we rise in 2025. Lisa Marie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm glad you're excited. Let's kick things off. Can you share a defining moment or a story that sparked your passion for reshaping workplace communication and remastering your life and work?
Sure. I can talk about this a lot. I've seen a lot of companies go through just a lot of different change, especially over the last few years. I don't think that any company was great about communication prior to COVID. And then once we saw COVID hit and people start working remotely and become a little detached from their teams and isolated at home, that communication did not get better. So I think through that, in working with startups in particular, trying to figure out how to overcome those issues, how can we still stay connected to our teams? It really just came down to having open lines of communication. And I think people, in many ways, forgot how to do that well. The muscle memory wasn't there. You didn't have the ability to just touch base when you were all in the kitchen getting coffee anymore. It had to be much more intentional. And I think without that forcing function of seeing people, it just seems like people kind of forgot how to do it. So, in that, we noticed this happening. And so we had to, in Retain, when we became the HR partner for a lot of these startups, really had to make sure that this was a conversation and something that we constantly touched on in our roadmap with founders and leaders to figure out when are those conversations happening, and if they're not, why? And so that's just been like a big focus for us as we continue to partner with founders and leaders. It's a lot about communication.
Yeah, a lot comes up there. I'm not sure that in companies' communication plans that they actually thought that deeply about how they were going to connect their employees when they were working remote. Is there anything that you see as being a best practice, especially for, I'm going to add to the question, especially for when you have new employees coming in, younger employees, let's say, that, we know that they benefit from the wisdom and the mentoring of other employees. Sorry, I'm making this question a little more complicated, but this is what I'm hearing is that the younger employees, especially if it's their first new job, they need to have some kind of a communication plan, maybe just for them. I'm just thinking now, maybe it's for that individual. And are companies starting to think more about that?
Oh, yeah. Companies are having to think more about that, just as they've seen turnover rates increase. What we've seen is that if people don't feel connected to their manager or their company, they just feel like they can go anywhere. And so they're easily poached out of those companies. They feel, so the loyalty, the trust that isn't being built in And so people are leaving. And so turnover is so expensive for a business. And
Mhm,
so what we try to help companies do is build a strong onboarding plan that bakes in communication at every level so
mhm,
that people regardless of their age or how long they've been in the workforce, they need to feel connected early. They
mhm,
need to feel like they have a trusted resource within the business that they can talk to, but more importantly, that their work matters and they have someone who knows that and is willing to partner with them along the way.
mhm,
And I think if you can connect them early and often, then their ability to be pulled out of a business by another company decreases, and you'll see turnover decrease as well.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
How do the risks for turnover differ for, say, a startup of 10 employees
Mm.
versus a startup that's going into, 50 employees?
Yeah, I would say it's a really good question. I would say that the turnover when you have a really small business the impact is gonna be felt much more dramatically. You might have one person, let's just say that you have one back end engineer, and if that person leaves and you have no one cross functionally helping in that, um, that historical information, all of the work on that person's plate, no one's really there to pick up where that left off, and it can drastically change the roadmap. A lot of people will be impacted as they have to take over those roles, and in some cases, learn those roles. You might have to
Mhm,
hire a consultant to, band-aid until you can hire someone. And just hiring someone in a small team, it takes everyone. So it's a lot of time. And there's an emotional component too, right? When you're a small team, you depend on everyone so much more.
yeah,
That doesn't go away in a bigger team, but I would say that there's much more cross functional help within a larger company. And you'll see turnover happen in larger companies, and there's plans for it.
mm,
You might have succession planning. And so someone who might be a little more junior can step up. But in a small company, you just don't have enough people to do that. And so it can drastically change the roadmap
mm,
for a business.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch gears a bit here
Sure.
because we're going into 2025 and there's
Mhm.
going to be, well, we're in 2025.
I know.
I think for many, today is the first day back.
Yes.
There's going to be some challenges, right? And
Mhm.
so, one of our posts for social media when we were setting this up was your quote about for too long now, we have looked at this reset, recover, caring for others, and raising children as a
Mm.
weakness, a sign of weakness when women try to take that step.
Sure.
Um, what do you think we need to do to support, rather than keep talking about it, but to support it, especially in the workplace, so that women and men feel comfortable
Yeah.
stepping back, resetting, like even taking a little longer of a break over the holidays, right?
Mhm. Yeah. It's a good question. I think really, I've seen a lot of value come from people who have a lot on their plate, because that ability to juggle, that ability to work, but also have this whole other section of their life where they are responsible. Um, y- there's work means more almost, right? And
Mm,
so because you're now working for someone else in a way, you have this responsibility to your family that has increased when you have more people join that family. So
mm,
I think we have seen the dedication and the ability to juggle and the ability to take things in stride. That increases when you have people who have gone through the whole process of having children and building a family and all of those things, because their life is more complicated, but that creates an ability to plan and be more thoughtful and mindful. And so, yeah, you might have people who their schedule might be a little bit more rigid because they need to take their kids to soccer or what have you. But it doesn't mean that they're not as dedicated. It doesn't mean that they're
yeah.
not doing twice the amount during the day. But also, what they're bringing to the table, what they're coming back with, is this whole other data set that is actually helpful in the workplace. So I think for businesses to not look at it as just time away, but almost like, when someone steps away to take a class or what have you, it's not necessarily going to be directly linked to like coding or what have you, but the life skills that it takes to go through this process and to juggle on a day-to-day basis, I think only increases their ability to work hard and be loyal and come with really good new ideas. But I think third to that is now they're able to, because they have this life experience, they're able to encourage other people within the business to take necessary time off. And that can only help with burnout rates, right? Because they've had to do it themselves and they understand the perception sometimes of what that means, but they benefited from it themselves. And they can pass that through, only making a more healthy workplace.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Interestingly, and unfortunately, the women that I see have the most problems with taking a rest to restore
Mhm.
are the entrepreneurs.
I know.
Because going back to how you were saying, they've built skills to integrate family and life. When this as a founder, when you found another company, it's like you have another child, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes. That's very true.
so we have to integrate that again. So
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, okay?
Oh,
Not too hard, but share with us how you took a moment to reset and restore
Mm,
your energy so that you're going to rise stronger in 2025.
mm. That is a really good question. I don't know if I'm always great at that, but I do try to l- more so now listen to my body when there are definite signs of I need to take a step back. I need to take a minute, whether that be just like illness or what have you. Like it used to be that I would just push through.
Mm,
Sometimes I felt like I didn't have a choice other than to push through.
right.
And sometimes it was just pushing against that perception, right?
Mm,
Um, it's just true. Women just have to work harder at that perception all the time.
mhm,
And so to take that time, it had to be, I always looked at it like a card you would play. Like, is this situation worth playing that card? Because we only have a few of them, right? Whereas now, as I've gotten more seasoned in my career and having my own business and those kind of things, recognizing that that's not a healthy way to look at it. Recognizing that I only have this period of time with my kids when they're home. And
yeah.
so when they're off, like we took a family vacation over spring break the holidays, this last one. And, I truly was able to unplug and just setting very clear, reasonable expectations with my team and clients. So not only did they know when they could reach me, and obviously I can jump in if it's important, but setting those expectations also sends a signal to my team.
Mhm,
They should do this too,
mhm,
and also to clients, right? I think when founders take necessary time off, it gives permission to the rest of the team to do the same. And again, you're just building a healthier work environment as a
yeah,
whole,
yeah.
um, and that can only benefit everyone.
Think that was a great answer. Right? Be the role model. It
Yeah.
gives other people permission to do the same, and it also gives them some like, how do we do this? Okay, so
Mhm.
you let your team know there's certain boundaries. So I think that was a good answer to my question about how did you take a break? How did you reset? So that's
And
good.
I keep learning, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone does it well all the time, but I think making sure it's a priority is really important.
Yeah. Well, I hope that women are learning just by watching interviews like this, because a lot of the women that I speak to are seasoned in their careers,
Mhm.
and they want to continue to contribute, and they're contributing their wisdom. Now, sometimes their work life was very rigid, that if
Mhm.
you did not show up for work, you had to have a doctor's note or something like that, right?
That's
And
right.
or you weren't a real serious entrepreneur if you did take 2 weeks off, right?
Right.
So things are changing, and I think the more that, not that we talk about it, but we actually do it. And
Mhm.
like you, I'm not always the best one to practice, but I've got a history of
Sure.
pushing through because of when I grew up in the workplace. So I'm always working at it as well. It's good
Yeah,
that we're all working at it.
I agree. Yeah.
So that also comes up to one of the other conversations that you and I had about the difference or the dichotomy between female and male communication, particularly in fundraising. So if there's any entrepreneur listening today that is going for funding in the
Mhm.
new year, please listen up. Okay, so please go ahead, Lisa Marie.
Yeah, I've seen this time and time again because I had the opportunity to work in an accelerator. So we would hear people pitching all the time, and we would help kind of coach and mentor through that process, but also being on the flip side and doing it myself and working with a number of VCs. It seems fairly common that I don't know where this training comes in or these expectations, but what we see often is that women are less likely to make stuff up, right? That we come in with hard facts, we come in with realistic expectations for the future. We say things like, given this data, our expectation is this, and we hope for this. Um, but if you hear, oftentimes, and I recognize this goes into a stereotype, so forgive me for some of that, but oftentimes when you see and hear someone who's male pitch even the same company, the pitch is completely different. And it's like, oh, this is definitely going to happen. No problem. And they go based off of it's actually more emotional than females come in. And so it's very strange. And I think what we see is that investors love hearing the magic that's going to happen, and they start to believe in this magic that's going to happen. And women sometimes have a really hard time painting that picture if
Mhm.
it's not totally data driven, if we don't actually see that as a reality and not just a hope. And so funding happens, and it's harder for females because they're not painting this like unicorn picture of everything. And so I think somehow men have been given this permission to like make up a bunch of stuff, and it works. Um, they're getting funding at a much higher rate than females are, and so I think getting into that headspace of like, okay, wait, we don't necessarily have to do it this way. It seems to work over here, and if you're able to come up with a way of painting a picture for investors that is a little outside of your comfort zone, but still rooted in reality and fact and honesty and integrity. I think that's really where we need to focus our time, is learning how to do that in a way that's going to be a bit uncomfortable,
Mhm.
because that does, it's so outside of what so many of us were trained to do. Um,
Yeah. When we were little girls,
mhm,
we were great at dreaming and making,
mhm,
using our imagination and making things look really inspiring. And, but somewhere along the line, we were told that, or we took this message in, that the only way to validate our own voice was to have the facts to back it up.
that's right.
Right? Do you
Yeah, we
think
had to
that?
prove ourselves a lot.
Yeah, we had to
Yep.
prove ourselves.
Mhm,
I think that might be a good research topic, because I think that's what's happening with women is that
mhm,
they go in prepared with all the facts and figures, and
mhm.
at the risk of losing their passion, how they show their passion for what they're doing. This
That's
is
right.
a really good point. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, final talking point is internal communication. It is hard, and leaders are coming up to some other additional challenges now. What do you see coming up in 25, such as AI, artificial
Mm.
intelligence?
We're seeing a lot with AI. What we're seeing, I would say that we're seeing two things. One is more folks in the workplace are relying on things like ChatGPT to not necessarily communicate for them, but kind of, right? So they oftentimes we're hearing like, oh, I just had an idea, so I typed it in ChatGPT and they came up with this letter that I then sent to my manager, right? And managers are doing the same thing. I have to have a really hard conversation with my, direct report. And so I typed it into ChatGPT and they came up with my talking points. And it's not necessarily that that's wrong, right? It could be a helpful tool to brainstorm and that kind of stuff. But on the flip side, what we're seeing is more and more companies are relying on things like AI for communication. If a company or if an employee has an issue, they're being sent to like a chat bot or something like that. And so that, kind of like what we talked about before, it decreases the connective tissue
Yeah.
that employees have with humans in their company. And so if their main interaction is with robots, they can do that anywhere. They can go to another company, and they likely, and what we're seeing is that they're longing for that human interaction. And so if they can go somewhere where someone has recruited them out because they've listened to them and they value them, they're easily poached out. And so the more that we see companies rely on AI to do the communication piece, the more that we're seeing employees recognize that and translate that into, I'm not worthy of actual connective tissue here, but I might somewhere else. So I guess what I would say to founders is that AI can help with so many things. It really can. I mean, it's shocking and almost scary what AI can do in many cases, but it's never going to replace you as a person being a mentor to a person.
Yeah.
And stripping that away and just not building that relationship with that person. They're going to know, they're going to feel it, and it's going to be a big issue.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm like having these conversations with founders about a lot now, is that don't just go the easy route, because it's actually going to end up harder in the end.
Yeah, it's going to bite you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it can't replace authentic caring for a person.
Right.
Correct. I think that's another way of saying what you've just said. And the one way that you can keep employees engaged is to show that you care about them, right?
That's right.
As humans, not as a number where we spit out another email, even without looking at what the email says, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that there are some, what would you say, traps, I guess, that we've got to be
Mm-hmm.
careful of if we do use it.
Right.
And I'm all for using it, but I see it as being my little assistant that helps me sort of build on my own brainstorming, but I
That's right.
still have to edit it, and it's still my decision on what I send out. And
That's
still,
right.
there will be errors in it, but if I sent it out from a human to human, there would have been an error in it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. There's going to be errors. But I think if the error is coming from a human, and it's still like the whole concept is of the communication is intentional,
Yeah.
those mistakes and whatever are fine, because that is a human thing to do. And it's coming from a place of being kind and listening and connecting. And like you said, you can't replace that.
Yeah, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, Lisa Marie, is there one thing that you would like listeners to take away from today's conversation? What would that be?
I think just the importance of communication. And it can be hard. And like a lot of us don't know how to do it well, but keep trying, keep setting that time aside, making sure that it's okay to get information from someone. And even if you need to pause and think about it and then come back, remain curious, ask a lot of questions. But without that, we're seeing a lot of damage. So make sure that's a priority. And if anyone has questions about this or what we're doing at Retain or 11 or whatever, I'm happy to jump on a call and chat with anyone as well.
So at the end of the day, whether you're starting a business or scaling one, your voice and your story are your greatest tools. So thank you, Lisa Marie. I think you've given some different topics today that from your wisdom, I think is great from where you are. Thank you for empowering us and giving us the tools to
Thanks
take
for
on
having me.
everything. Self-trust, right? Okay. So you will see, for our guests, you will see that I've put Lisa Marie's contact information for her website. Other contact information will be in the show notes, but you can see in the video today, you can see her website. So I do invite you to connect with Lisa Marie. If her story inspired you, please share this episode with someone who you think could use some of these empowering insights. I think there's something for everybody today. Don't forget to connect with both Lisa Marie and myself, and stay tuned for more impactful conversations. Don't forget to tag any female entrepreneur who inspires you and remind her that she deserves to grow and succeed on her terms as well, so that we can all rise in 2025 together. Join me live or on replays as I share conversations with other inspiring women like Elizabeth and thought leaders. We explore the secrets to personal and professional fulfillment for all decades of transformation, transition in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. No matter what your age, I invite you to be a guest on my show. Let's connect and inspire together. So you can visit me on my website, patriciamuir.com. Very easy. Read the Executive Encore weekly blog on my website and on LinkedIn. It goes on LinkedIn as well. And please subscribe to my newsletter. When you subscribe to my newsletter, you will see what I write on my weekly newsletter on the guests that come onto Executive Encore. So this Sunday, Lisa Marie will be featured in both my blog and my newsletter. So I ask you, please, to support Lisa Marie and support any kind of communication that we can have to get the word out to other women and other people who are navigating the chaos of unexpected detours, and they're trying to stabilize their life to focus on fulfillment and self-actualization. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you again next week.